Okay.
Really? Are you serious?
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ferndale City Council meeting for Monday, August 25th, 2014. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Sherlyn, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Council members Lennon,
Yes, I am here.
Martin,
Here.
Polika,
Here.
Yes, I am here.
Piana, Mayor Coulter.
Yes, I am here. Apparently that's the response tonight.
Yes.
Next item of business would be the approval of the agenda. And I'd like to add, because I see some of our elected officials in the audience, I'd like to add 3 presentations, actually. At the beginning of the list, I'd like to add a report from our library board. And then item D, I'd like to add our County Commissioner Helene Zach is here. And then item E, I'd like to ask Lloyd Curitan et al. To talk a little bit about the flood and where we're at with that before we get into the rest of the meeting. So I'd like to make those modifications to presentations.
I move to accept the agenda with the amendments presented.
Second.
Moved by Piana and supported by Polika. Any discussion? Sherlyn, could you call the roll?
Council members Polika,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Lennon,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. So now moving to presentations, Library Board Member Tiffany Gagne is here to give us an update on the library.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's been a long time since I've been here. I'm here on behalf of the Ferndale Library. I'm a trustee. Been there for a long time. I provided all of you with a booklet that I wanted to bring to your attention that the library is performing. We just launched a Make Your Mark campaign. As many of you know, and municipalities and other people who rely on tax revenues, we are on tough times. We've had to lay off 2 employees. We've had to cut our library hours. We're closed on Fridays now, and it's very unfortunate, but we're still trying to provide a great service to our, bless you, to our community. So what we have done is we have Make Your Mark on Ferndale. We have gotten Allied Printing, who, if you will look on the back of this, and you guys can all go on our website and check this out. Allied Printing did the printing for this great booklet that we are sending to our businesses to ask them to partner with us. I want to let you know right now that Allied Printing donated all of this to us, which is fantastic. They've done over 500 copies of this. They have provided a lot of the graphic help with the help of a lot of our employees and our board members. Woodward Avenue Brewery was one of the first people who hopped on board. They're allowing us to sling beer at the events that they hold, and we work for tips. And through the Friends of the Ferndale Library.
A DIY? Is that the
we're doing
beer?
DIY. We did
Great.
Pig and Whiskey. We raised $1,800 back then. We're hoping to hit $2,000 at the DIY. And we want to give a special kudos to Credit Union One, who has committed $30,000 over 5 years. So, yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'll clap for
Yes,
that.
indeed. And we will keep working on this. We're asking our businesses what will happen is when they are sponsoring the computer lab. So we found a company that will make a plaque, and it's outside of the computer lab, and it gives them kudos. And then we've also created a donor wall. So if that 5 years runs out and they don't want to re-sponsor, but we hope they will, that plaque goes onto the donor wall. I ask you all to visit the library and see what we've been doing recently. We did not get hit by the floods. Thank you, Jesus. as you might know, we've had a lot of problems with water there. But so I would ask you all to take a look at that. We're doing our best to try to get some money back into the system so that we can maintain the great services to our community. And if you have any questions, feel free to call Jessica Kaiser. She's our director. If you want to tour the roof, the green roof, please go up there and ask her, or you can call me personally.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you
awesome.
very much.
Thanks for coming by.
Oh, I appreciate it. Do you want my pencil? Thanks so much.
Yes. The next presentation is July Beautification Awards. But I'm not sure
I'm not seeing.
someone from the Beautification Committee is actually here. So let's skip that. If they show up, we'll come back to it. Presentation B is Ferndale Public Schools, and I do believe I see one of our school board members here.
Good evening. I'm Amy Butters. I'm here from the Ferndale School Board. And I'm here just to give you a little bit of a report about our fantastic opening day that we had today. Today was the day that our teachers and staff all returned after a lot of them had the summer off. And I want to thank Greg and April and Joe for joining us over at the high school this morning. We had a breakfast for all our employees over there, and those of us on the school board organized it for the employees. And sticking to the theme that Tiffany was talking about the generosity of our community, we had lots of businesses around town that donated to our breakfast, and I'm just going to read them really quick. There's just a few of them. We had Mays, we had Toast, we had Western Market, Petite's Cheesecake over at Oak Park, New York Bagel, Apple Fritter, Pinwheel Bakery, and Hilton Road Cafe. They all came through for us and donated items to our breakfast. Plus, we had many parents bake for the breakfast this morning. So we didn't have to use any district money for this event this morning, which I think was really a nice way to start out the year. Like I said, the teachers, this was their first day back, and they did have a really nice program in the auditorium. Dr. Eddie Connor, who is a teacher over at University High School, was the keynote speaker. And I was bummed that I missed it, but I heard it was really good. I heard the keynote was really, really good. So we were glad to give our teachers and our staff a good way to start our fall year. And so also, of course, I always want to mention that enrollment is open right now. Please call our enrollment office if you have kids that need to get enrolled at Ferndale schools. 248-586-8686. That's the number to call, and they will get you all squared away. The first day of school is a week from tomorrow, next Tuesday.
Hard to believe.
All the moms in the audience can cheer. Okay, so last but not least, our new superintendent, Blake Pruitt, asked me to make sure to let you know about our Eagle Pride campaign. Again, picking up on Tiffany's theme, we're having a campaign also, Eagle Pride campaign this fall. And through the generosity of one of our local real estate agents, Jim Schaefer, we are going to have Eagle Pride lawn signs to pass around to whoever wants one. And I know all of you are on the list, and we'll be passing those out. Those will be coming soon. There is two dates I'm going to tell you. September 17th is Meet the Superintendent Night at the WAB. And then I just wanted to give you an early save the date for October 3rd, which is our homecoming. And we will be doing a parade down 9 Mile this year. So we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to having homecoming be a great event this year. And I think that's it. Like I said, we're really excited about the beginning of the year and having the teachers and the staff back.
I'm sorry, what time is on September 17th? What time?
I don't have a time.
Okay.
It'll be evening,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, at the WAB. And that's going to be, he's going to do a series of those. So if you can't come that night, I'm sure there will be another night. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Amy?
Thank you.
Thanks as
Thank
always
you.
for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.
No, but I do love your shirts, and I want to know where we can get those.
Oh, I will see if I can hook you up. I'm not sure. These were the class of 2014, right? That's the year we're in right now. 2014, senior class of last school year. This was their shirt. Ferndale hustles harder.
That's right.
I can check and
Very
see.
cool.
I can check and see if we have some stashed around that we can. Definitely, yeah. I'm excited about mine. Definitely. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Next presentation is the Downtown Development Authority, and I think I saw Chris Hughes. Yes, there she is. You guys have had a lot going on.
Always do. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I have some prepared things, but it was really great to listen to everybody talk about how all of our businesses in district and out of the district support all kinds of entities. It's awesome, from Allied Printing to Western Market to everybody just digging in and supporting, and I'm very proud to be affiliated with all those businesses via my job at the DDA, and I'm happy to do it on a daily basis. Also, awesome Blake Pruitt. We were really excited. We had a meeting with him, and we like that Eagle Pride. I think you'll be seeing some banners on 9 Mile to celebrate Eagle Pride, so we're very excited about that. But here's part of my my regular remarks, although those are maybe perhaps more exciting. But this Wednesday morning is FernNet, the Ferndale DDA's Biz Dev Committee monthly B2B networking opportunity. Our topic this month will be a new promotion that we're going to have, a new initiative about cross-promoting via text messaging. So this is going to be something that's going to be at no charge to the first businesses that opt in with us. The meeting is going to be held at 9 a.m. Wednesday, August 27th at Pet and Paw, 23233 Woodward. Free info, great networking, and of course a courtesy cup of joe via one of our newest businesses, Big B Coffee, which by the way opened last week, located in the old Blockbuster building on West 9 Mile, kind of where Livernois dead ends or does something right there. It's a great, nice addition to that part of town. It's bright, it's happening, and we were able to test run some products during their test run, and they're tested pretty good. So I highly recommend that. As everyone probably knows, or they'll know by the end of this meeting, the DIY Street Fair has been rebooted and will come back the weekend of September 12th and 13th, which makes that one of the best. The return of it makes it one of the best art fair weekends in the region, with the DIY back on board on the east side and the fine tradition of the Funky Ferndale Art Show on the west side. The downtown Ferndale, we're pleased to offer up something for art lovers of every genre, whether you like really fancy stuff or kind of funkier stuff. Anyway, it's lots of different choices there, and links to both of these events can be found on downtownferndale.com. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory brought out the kiddies and their parents, and at the very end, the rain. But it was a great night for Get Real outdoor movies on Vester Street. That was last Thursday. The street was filled in with lots of kids and their parents, and some grown-ups who came without kids, and enjoyed watching all the Oompa Loompas on the silver screen. Next month, on September 18th, Get Real continues on a Throwback Thursday with 16 candles. Outdoor Movies is presented by Ferndale Collision, and it is an event of the Promotions Committee of the DDA. And finally, calling all of our holiday hoofers, registration is now open for the second annual obstacle run in downtown Ferndale. It's a nighttime run that challenges every category. It happens on November 22nd, which seems very far away, but I can't believe we're starting school next week, so it comes, you're never too early, so register now at active.com, and that is it for downtown Ferndale.
Great.
Thank you.
Anyone have questions of Chris? Awesome. Thank you, Chris. The next presentation is our County Commissioner, Helene Zach.
Good evening, everybody. I know everybody's sick of flood, but I do. Hopefully, people have been able to clean out their basements, but if they still do need help, I recommend that people call 211 hotline, and there are resources. This is our clearinghouse for our community of lots of different social service and other resources. And we've been told that there's been additional volunteer groups that have come into the community to help people that might need some assistance. I also want to remind people, through the Oakland County Community and Home Improvement Department, for income eligible, lower income people, there are no interest home loans, particularly for safety, care, concern, furnaces, things like that. So we do typically keep applications in the City Hall, and if you don't have some, I'll bring you some. Let me know. You also can find them online at advantageoakland.com, and it is a process. It's not an emergency, service. It usually takes somewhere 4 to 6 weeks, but realistically, you could wait for a furnace that period of time. Right now, it's not like you need heat and so forth, and apply for these no-interest loans. So I do want to remind you about that. And as your county elected official, we are trying to find money to help in other ways. So, to be continued.
Great. Thanks, Helene. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Questions of Helene? No. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming by. So speaking of flood, it was exactly 2 weeks ago today, as we were sitting here getting ready for council, when somebody said, I think there's water in the basement, and turns out there was a whole lot of water in the basement here and across the city. And so 2 weeks later, Lloyd, maybe you could just bring us up to speed on what happened and what we've learned and where we're at.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks.
Joe, would you pull that picture up for me? Thank you. I'm going to put a picture on the board that kind of summarizes all my statements that I'm going to make. I'll let people at home and the council look at it as I go through a quick list. This will explain exactly what happened to our system, and you'll understand why as I go through my notes. But before I get into what we did and why, I'd like to tell you 3 important things. I'd like to tell you 3 important things that didn't happen, because they've been asked by many residents, and I want to get that message out early. One is that the city's water system was safe throughout the event. It did not lose pressure. It was not contaminated. And we had DPW on staff at all locations throughout the event safeguarding those assets. The city did not turn off pumps, did not shut valves. In fact, our system doesn't have that. Our system is a gravity system. There is no way for us to shut off pumps, turn valves on the drains. It just doesn't have them. It's all a gravity system. And finally, the system did not fail. I know that's hard to believe considering the hundreds of homes that were flooded, but our system worked as it was designed. This was simply an overwhelming event. In fact, my engineers had calculated, they call it a once in a 300-year flood. Other news agencies in the metro area have called it as much as a 500-year flood. But either way, what we were looking at is in a 2-hour period of time, we received almost 5 inches of water. A 500-year flood is determined 6 inches in a 12-hour period of time. So we were well ahead of that, and we were in a disastrous situation. During the event, DPW responded to a number of service requests by both police and fire, and I really would be shortchanging both police and fire if I didn't tell you what an incredible job they did helping us with an overwhelming situation. We had roads that need to be closed everywhere. We had, just a ton of calls coming in for requests by radio, and so they were instrumental in us being able to do and have what limited success we did have in the initial stages of the event, particularly the fire department, who helped us bail out nearly 3.5 feet of water in the City Hall basement. So, but beyond that, we closed roads. We had trees that fell from the ground becoming saturated and toppling over, the root systems failing. We had leaks in City Hall, flooding in the basement. Catch basin covers were literally, and these things weigh 90 pounds or more, blown off the system throughout the area. So we had to spend a good part of the time that during the storm and the subsequent day just going around and checking our entire system to make sure they were safe for vehicles and pedestrians. I mean, when you consider the hundreds of catch basins and covers that we have, that alone took many man-hours to address. Since the event, we've been working on sinkholes, catch basins, we've been working on city buildings, no surprise to council, and we have responded to hundreds of service requests via the internet, via our homepage, and we also have cleaned and inspected thousands of linear feet of sewer main. We did that as a precautionary measure, both because we got the calls and it's part of our normal procedure to go out and check, but also because of a storm of this magnitude, we wanted to make sure that nothing was washed into the system that we might miss. So we went out, we checked, and we found that our system was operating properly, just completely overwhelmed. We also have increased our street sweeping because of the amount of debris that was washed throughout the city. And then the question has come up, what happened, what happened regionally that affected us? Well, the picture that I have on the board says it all. When I tell you that the system was overwhelmed, what you're looking at is a backflow through the storm system that is as high as the buildings on Hilton, which is the county drain exiting the city, and all of our system and parts of other communities empty into that drain. If the county's drain is overwhelmed, which some of the news releases, I mean, obviously, where in fact they sustained millions of dollars in damages because of the nature of the overwhelming and regional event, there's nowhere for our water to go. In fact, we may be getting water from other places. So particularly in the northeast quadrant of the city, which is where the drain exits, and it's the lowest point, we were the most heavily hit because water, will go to its lowest point and then back up. What can we do to prevent flooding in our basements in an event of this magnitude? Frankly, nothing. We can improve the situation, we can tighten our controls, and we will have some effect. But a storm of this nature, there isn't anywhere that could handle a 500 or better year flood. It's going to happen. A system will be overwhelmed. And even if you could build the pipes, the cost would be so extravagant, no one could afford it. Not only that, is a system that you build to handle a once-in-a-lifetime event potentially would be so expensive to maintain because it doesn't have the proper flow through the system in order to clean itself and to remove that water and keep it from being, becoming a health hazard. Some of the things that we can do that will help minimize basement flooding, though, is that we could increase our stormwater management. We could look at all developments that come into the city, and these are things that staff has been implementing. We could do retention, we could do detention, we could do bioswales, rain barrels, porous pavement, rain gardens, temporary allowing water to pond in parking lots, green roofs. There are many ways, but basically any way that we can divert and detain water from entering the storm system will help prevent a major flood. Our infrastructure is getting old, and not only our infrastructure, but also infrastructure on private property. When we go out and we investigate floods, more often than not, the problem is with the service line coming from the home into our sewer main. Council supported the DPW and purchased some very expensive equipment. We received it last week, and we've kept it busy every day. And more often than not, what we find is what we saw last year when we had to call a contractor in at a cost of $80,000. We find service lines that have root balls the size of people's heads sticking out of their service lines. I mean, there's just no way for the water to flow out of their basement. And they only, many times what will happen, as I explained last year, they won't notice this because the pipe itself will hold so many washings and so many dishwashings and laundry and baths and toilet flushings, because it'll back up in the pipe and then it'll slowly drain out either through where the joints are in the pipe, or it will eventually slowly drain out through the roots that have compiled into the system. So what happens in an overwhelming event, though, is all that water tries to get out at once, and it becomes evident by a flood in the basement. So my recommendation to citizens are twofold. our ordinances already require that roof drains are not connected to our system. Sometimes on smaller lots, it's difficult to do that. Nobody wants a pond in their backyard for a given period of time. But a pond in the backyard is better than a pond in the basement. And it also will help all your neighbors, even if you don't have an event, and it is required by city ordinance. The other thing is that they, and this is something that the city is going to be discussing again in the future, thanks to Councilperson Polika. He brought to the city's attention programs where residents would be eligible for insurance through a private entity supported by the National League of Cities, and we've reviewed it. Management has reviewed it. It's a very good deal. Look forward, residents, to seeing some more information on that in the future. But when infrastructure on private property is reaching, in many cases, 70, 80, 90 years old, there are problems. And the fact that they may offer insurance where the line would be replaced for possibly as little as $8 a month, that's a very good deal, considering we know that many of the service lines in the city are in bad need of repair. So, you know, in conclusion, I can tell you that, there is one other thing. During these events, people who did not experience basement flooding did call and complain about street flooding. The thing is about street flooding, there are areas in the city, in order to prevent that water from entering the system and overwhelming the houses in the local area, we do put restrictors on. And so there are streets that are designed actually to hold water. It shouldn't hold it overnight, but it might hold it for an hour, hour and a half, and then slowly drain off and enter the system. That is done purposely for that local area to allow the water to come out of their own systems into the sewer mains, rather than having the storm water overwhelm everything and flood the basements. So going forward, it really was an overwhelming event, regional in nature, and there wasn't anything that we could have done to prevent the basement floodings that occurred.
Thanks, Lloyd. Now, April, from a city perspective, what are we asking residents to do?
So now we know what happened at that event. We're still, everybody is still doing some type of cleanup. City Hall is doing cleanup. Some of our residents are as well. So what we encourage all of our residents to do is to, on our website and on Facebook and on cable, we've been trying to keep everybody as up to date as possible through those communication channels, is a flood assistance page, if you will, which talks in great detail about all the different opportunities and things that they can do to help address their flood cleanup. One of the things is that if they want to file an insurance claim with the city, that they need to do that. They can get that online through the website, as well as, I believe, on the cable station it shows what email or what phone number to call through Cheryl Lynn. I'm going to actually let Cheryl Lynn talk a little bit more about the insurance process and what's going on with that, and then we'll kind of have this conversation so the residents understand what that means and what that looks like.
Certainly. The City of Ferndale is a member of the MMRMA, an acronym that stands for Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority. It's a self-insurance pool that provides liability and property coverage to municipal governments throughout Michigan. Under Public Act 222 in the Michigan statutes, there's a definition of city liability in regards to these types of events. It also sets forth the process for filing a claim. So residents who want to possibly pursue a claim against the city have 45 days from the time they discover the damage to submit a notice of claim form through the city. Those are the forms that April is talking about that are available on the website. It's a very simple form that asks for name, contact information, what happened, etc. I take those, I forward them on to our claims adjuster at the MMRMA. They typically open a case file, investigate the incident, and then respond directly to the claimant. In this case, of course, it won't be individual investigations. They're looking at everything as a whole. I was able to attend a meeting with them this past weekend, and there is an estimated 34,000 properties in the Detroit metro area that were affected by the August 11th storms. So far, in the last 2 weeks, I've processed 300 claims, those notice of claim forms that have been filed by residents. As I said, the MMRMA is investigating, and as Lloyd said, what they are finding is that the widespread flooding in the Tri-Counties simply constitute a capacity issue, not one of the issues under PA 222. They are working, MMRMA is working on categorizing and getting ready to start responding. I still don't anticipate residents getting a response for another couple weeks, but they will respond to everyone who has filed a claim form, and they will respond directly to you. As residents are submitting claim forms electronically, I'm responding to let you know I've gotten them. Anybody who has submitted by mail or over the counter a claim form that happens to have an email address on it, we're trying to get to you to let you know we've received your claim. If you are not sure, if you haven't heard from us, you might want to contact my office and make sure we have your paperwork and that we get it in. And you can contact me at cbrown@ferndalemI.gov.
We still encourage our residents, that those that want to make a claim, to continue to do so until the
Absolutely.
45 days is up. You just don't know at that point where it's going, but
Exactly.
at this point, it's, it's not meeting Public Act 222, but that doesn't mean we still don't think that you should file any.
The option is
climate
open to
damages.
you, and you are certainly more than welcome to make yourselves available to it.
So again, all that information can be found on our website, as well as with our new, I don't know if people have noticed our new cable information. We're able to provide so much more information. We thank Marnie for keeping that information up to date as well, with phone numbers. You can also come into City Hall as well. I think there's a few other things we want to talk a little bit too about how our residents are managing some of the damage that's within their homes. Commissioner Zach had already discussed that, going and calling 211 for those that need some help. She is very, very correct on that. In fact, all of the agencies that you would normally call from 211 or Red Cross or Salvation Army are funneling all of the need into 211 so that they can help and divert that to the right people. There's a group out there called Samaritan's Purse right now that's headquartered. They just recently moved into Royal Oak for a while to help us with all of this, and to help all of the residents that need that help. So it's very important that if you or your neighbors, if you have a neighbor that's a shut-in or disabled or financially incapable, it's so important to get them on that 211 call list so that they can help get those volunteers out there to help them. And speaking of volunteers, they are looking for volunteers as well. Again, you can find all that information on the website and cable station and Facebook as well, but they are looking for volunteers. I know a lot of our residents have said, what can we do to help? They need volunteers, and it's, I think it's Monday through, I even think the weekends, 8 to 5, they do cleanup, and they have all of the materials we need to do a safe cleanup there as well. And they are also looking for donations of water and Gatorade, and I believe bleach is on the list as well. But you can find all of that information. So we really encourage anybody who's interested in that to keep helping with that, but then also, again, encouraging people that you know are in need to go there. I think, too, it's important to note that a couple of things that we have done is to try to help with the trash. SACRA for the first couple of weeks was able to do multi-pickups. As you know, last week with the overwhelming amount of trash, they had to slow that down to normal pickup stages. What we are looking at throughout the rest of this week, you'll continue to be able to put all of your damaged goods out onto the curb without getting tickets. No rules apply at this point. Except for recycling. I think there might be, look at the end of this week, I think Lloyd said that they might be picking up recycling, but just be on the safe side. If they don't pick up a recycling, they're still a little behind. But starting next Tuesday, we're back to normal. Your recyclables can go back out. No more stuff at the curb that doesn't meet the requirements. We will believe the transfer station will be open next week as well for bulk items that may have been, that you couldn't get out in time. Is that true, or we're not sure yet on that one?
SACRA today at the meeting said that they would not be servicing individuals, at least for the remainder of this week. That includes paper shredding, electronics, and any other visits from the general public.
So I think what we need to do is, if for those that need to bring anything to the transfer station, make sure you look on the SACWIS website before you transport. But we would imagine in the next 2 weeks you can start doing that as well. So as far as we are understanding that next week we go back to the normal pickup and recyclables as well. So we really appreciate everybody's patience as we work through that process as well. Something else, a question had come up. Go ahead, sorry.
Wait, I'm just, on that point, Cher, if you had a quick question, yeah.
No, a statement on that point. They had a separate truck this afternoon that picked up our recyclables on West Troy.
Okay.
It looked like a garbage truck, but they said, no, this is just recyclables. They assured me because I was having concern.
Great. Thank you.
They're
good.
So they did do that. That was good to see.
Good.
They're trying to get back to normal.
Puts the bins
Yeah.
out.
Very good. They're trying to get back to normal as much as possible to just be safe. If you do put it out, there is a chance they might not pick it up, but if they do, they'll just leave. If they can't, they'll just leave it there, and if they can, they will. Another supporting issue that had come up is actually Mayor Pro Tem Dan Martin approached me and asked about the possibility of, with so many basements being destroyed in these floods, that we require permits for water heaters and furnaces and for basic construction. And we do that because it's for safety factors. So it's very important to make sure these things are hooked up correctly. Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to talk a little bit about what your request was, and we can kind of talk about that a little bit further?
Sure. At least one other community in Metro Detroit has done this, and it's just in recognition, such a high percentage of the buildings have been hit by flooding in the city of Ferndale, and folks have experienced quite a hardship because of that, and we really need to, I think, take a look at how we can support each other in the community and provide at least a little bit more immediate relief. So what my request is, and at the conclusion of the presentation I'll submit a resolution to this effect, is that we waive the fees around for hot water heaters, furnaces, as well as any basement reconstruction permits related to damage from the flood. Now, I recognize this isn't without cost. We collect $50 on the average furnace permit and $35 on water heaters, and the construction costs themselves can vary depending upon the size of the project. But on an individual basis, I think it provides a little relief for folks who are already strapped, who are already dealing with insurance companies. My suggestion would be we go back to the 12th, which is the day after the event, and go forward 60 days. As well as it may provide at least a little bit of incentive for folks who might be looking, because of the emergency, to go around using licensed builders, for example, and have to deal with the hassle of getting permits in the city. So it could, if you figure the estimate, if 1,000 households make a claim, it could easily reach $100,000. But I think the risk of not doing it and having people go around the system and not providing at least what we can for relief, I think outweighs that cost significantly. So I'll have that resolution at the conclusion of the presentation.
And staff and I, we did discuss that, and we agree wholeheartedly. It's so important to get those permits, in particular for all of it, but your gas and furnace for safety reasons, and we don't want to put anything in the pathway of preventing people from doing that. So we could support that resolution if you choose to do that tonight. We could put that in and implement that starting tomorrow. I think, and just to conclude on the part of, as we keep moving forward for my piece, and then I want to turn it over to the mayor to talk a little bit more about FEMA and things of that nature, is just continue to look at our website, Facebook, and cable. And if you have any questions, we also have a flood hotline as well. And also you can come into City Hall, and if you have any questions, we can help you. On our resource page, it also talks about how to make sure that you're safely cleaning your basements, what materials that you need, and all of that. So continue to look at our website for updates. We've been trying to keep that up as much as possible. And I'm hoping that the cable channel has helped with that a little bit, just because we know so many of our residents look at that. So with that, if there's anything else that anybody has any questions on regarding the flood, you can call anybody at City Hall and we can help you with that. With that, I want the mayor to talk a little bit about where we are with the state of emergency and things of that nature.
Yeah, one of our primary concerns after we got the immediate safety issues addressed is how to help residents address the cost of this catastrophe, and it was a catastrophe. One of the first steps we did is I declared a state of emergency in Ferndale, not because our systems weren't, our staff and systems weren't working properly, but hopefully to qualify for federal assistance if it was available. We did find out on Monday the governor has formally requested FEMA to release funds to Michigan. He's already declared it a disaster area in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. He has formally asked FEMA to declare funds. So that sounds like good news, but I will also tell you I was on a conference call on Friday with our congressman, also the director of Homeland Security in Oakland County, who sort of talked about what that process is like. And just sort of to keep it simple, FEMA uses 3 criteria for damage. There's minor damage, major damage, and destroyed. So a destroyed structure is something that is uninhabitable and cannot be repaired. Major damage is something that is uninhabitable but can be repaired. And minor damage is damaged but still habitable and can be repaired. FEMA does not typically cover what they consider minor damage. So it's actually a bit of a long shot. But one of the things we talked about was they have a criteria in addition to those 3 things about the magnitude of an event. So if we can demonstrate to FEMA that this flood was of a magnitude that in itself on that criteria might elevate it to release some funds, that we could possibly still get FEMA funds. So that's why it is still important to fill out the form. And April, on our website is the damage form that would
It's the one that Sherilyn.
The same one that you use for your insurance would also qualify to help us track for FEMA. So it's still important to do that, whether or not an insurance claim gets approved or not, so that we can help try to demonstrate to FEMA the magnitude, which obviously, was severe.
Sure, and also staff, just so everybody understands how we're kind of tracking all of these things, is we're using multiple sources. So we used our website inquiry as a basis, the service calls that DPW is getting, the flood hotline, we're taking every single address. Then we've had our code enforcement has been awesome. In fact, our entire team has really banded together the city to try to help and mitigate these things as soon as possible. But our code enforcement have been tracking, along with some folks at DPW, those that have had trash in front of the yard. So we've been tracking addresses. At this point, we think, looking at the tracking that we've done, and it's called a windshield assessment, but we believe that about 65% of our residents were hit on some level regarding this flooding, which is about 8,000 homes, I believe is what the number was. So we continue to take every single person that calls their address, and we keep plotting that. So we're taking it from multiple sources as well, too.
So I just want residents to know, even though the water may be gone and most of the trash is gone, our efforts to continue to try to get some kind of assistance for residents continues. I will tell you, we've also said, look, we'll figure out how to restore City Hall. If the city is eligible for any public funds, we'd like to try to use that to get back to homeowners in some way. That's never really been done in that fashion either. But we continue to make that argument that if we can, we will try to get assistance for homeowners in this. And I guess finally I'd be negligent if I didn't say our staff was amazing, working around the clock in an unprecedented event. And once again, our residents stepped up to support each other, to help each other, an event like that could have been real ugly real fast. But once again, I'm proud of the way the community responded and our staff responded to this event. So I think that's all on the flood. If you have any questions, obviously come up during call to audience. But I hope that gives you a better understanding of where we're at with the flood and where we're trying to go forward. Does anyone on council have any questions about that before we move on? I'll give residents a chance during call to audience. All right, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make that resolution.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Cool. I would move that we, in recognition of the severe storm impact to residents on August 11th, 2014 in Ferndale and the challenge to residents faced with repair costs, along with permit fees, City Council authorizes staff to waive all permit fees for water heaters and furnaces, as well as basement reconstruction permit fees related to damage caused by the flooding of August 11th, 2014. The resolution will be effective August 12th, 2014 through October 12th, 2014.
Support.
So moved by Martin and supported by Lennon. Any discussion on that?
I just want to confirm, we're still asking residents to come and complete the form, to file it. We're just not charging it.
Correct. It doesn't waive the need or requirement for the inspection or anything else. We're just taking the fee off of it. And to that end, I also want to be clear, because we're going back to August 12th, we're saying anybody who's already come in and paid the fee can come in and get refunded for that amount as well.
Correct.
Yep, so you are still going to get the inspection, and you're just not paying the fee.
Correct.
Yes.
If anything, I hope this encourages the inspection. Yes.
So, just so we're clear, when is the end of the 60 days? When does this sunset?
October 12th.
October 12th,
And
thank
we
you.
can always review at that time
Okay.
what we do with it.
Councilman, I think it's a wonderful idea, and I applaud you for either coming up with it or stealing it from somewhere or wherever.
I stole it.
but,
You
stole it.
It's
I stole it from another
it's
jurisdiction.
a small but helpful, hopefully a helpful step.
I admit it.
I support it.
And I also want residents to know this is also a cost that the city's going to incur up to $80,000 if the amount of people who we, or more, that we're waiving, basically, to help out residents, so.
Well, and I also want to make sure that residents know when they have a contractor that comes in, spread the word, because they should not be telling you, oh, we have to have this $50 fee for the permit. So make sure you tell your neighbors and friends.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Sherilyn, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Lennon?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Adopted. All right, that concludes presentations. Next item of business would be call to audience. Call to audience is 30 minutes now and more time if needed at the end of the meeting for any member of the audience to speak on whatever issue that they would like that's not on the agenda, because you can talk to that when we get there. 3 minutes. Give us your name and address, and the 3 minutes is yours. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Vanna White and Christy Faulkner. I'm Maria Gary. I live at 306 West Troy. I'd like to announce a new organization that we're forming dedicated to giving a united voice to the residents of Ferndale, the Ferndale Association of Invested Residents, or FAIR. Our mission is to provide a forum for residents to voice their concerns and our support for community issues and to work with local businesses who share our vision for the Ferndale community. So if you want to be a part of FAIR, you can email us at fairferndale48220@gmail.com, as you can see here on the poster. You can also like us on Facebook. The first issue we're tackling as an organization is the 360 project. You can join this discussion about the project on Facebook. And there's also a page dedicated to the project called Ferndale Do a 180 on 360. So please connect with FAIR via our email address and our Facebook page to stay informed about all the community issues we plan to address in the future and currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, stranger, how are you, sir?
I am well. How about yourself?
Very well.
Good evening, Council. It's Robert Porter, 855 Marshfield, Ferndale, Michigan. And I came down to tonight because of, obviously, the tragedy we've gone through with the global warming problems, the worst winter we had on record in accumulation, as well as some of the worst storms we've had in history. But I come down with thanks, and the reason for that is that, one, the quick response and emergency declaration by our city. I think that was done for the right reasons in order to give the greatest opportunity to our residents to be reimbursed or made whole, if possible, on their losses. But I also want to thank people back, this goes back to 1994, and that's the main committee. When you look at the streets in Berkeley, Huntington Woods, and so forth, and the debris and the damage that was caused, and you look in our streets, we did pretty well. And it's because those people took an initiative to upgrade the infrastructure in our city, which is something that's, as you know, a continual issue.
That's right.
But they did that with the intent of making this a better and a safer place. I do believe that we could have come away with this with one little additional action from our residents. I've been in contact with people in different communities. Businesses on Livernois had gotten in touch with me that had been seriously flooded. The problem was not to do with our sewers and what have you in that area. It was our sewer grates that were plugged on our streets. Now, no matter how much you sweep a street, it takes one windy day and the leaves come down and the rain starts to pull and you have mats on top of those things. I would encourage people to keep track of your sewers in your community. Livernois was completely closed. We had abandoned cars in the middle of the street. But once a neighbor, Dave, that lives on the corner from me, and myself came out. We got to the sewers. The street was open in 20 minutes. The businesses were then dry. This is something we can do on our own. Under those circumstances, the city is just not able to answer everybody's call. You've got a handful of people answering hundreds of calls. So anyway, all in all, I think the response of the city was wonderful. I think we have to take part ourselves, not only cleaning those out, but when we mulch our lawns, we don't need to leave the mat of grass on the street. It takes 2 minutes for the broom to take care of that situation, and that may save you a problem in the future. Thank you.
Good reminder. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Sherry Wells, 315 West Troy. My neighbors and I look at the Dream Cruise map and promotional materials. Some of it is to see what we want to see where in the Dream Cruise, since we can walk to it. But the other is also to see where the sound stages are. And according to that map, it was supposed to be by Woodward, which has been the practice for a while, in deference to the fact that we do have residents that live around the downtown. To our shock, we found that where the major stage was not where the map showed it. So we didn't plan to be away from home. I let my daughter use the car. I was a prisoner in my own home. The stage was right at Allen and 9 Mile. At one time, our noise ordinance had a 50-foot limit. There is no reason for anything to be louder than it can be heard at 50 feet. Nothing, not a festival, not a bar. Jeff King from the Public House is doing it right on his back patio. If you're 50 feet away from that back patio speaker, you can barely hear it. That's the way it should be. No exceptions on any of these things. The festivals should have no right to have it any louder than anything that can be heard 50 feet away. That's enough for people to say, oh, I hear something, let's go check it out, without making the rest of us entirely miserable. At the time we had the last ordinance change, I was a representative of residents, and we were asked, would this be acceptable? I said, we'll give it a try. Well, we did. It's not been working. Not enough. It's not as miserable as it was, but that's not the test. There's been a concern for the fireworks and that noise and what it does to dogs. For the last 3 or 4 years, my cat has wanted to have his ears rubbed because they hurt. My ears hurt. You're not supposed to be wearing earplugs more than maybe an hour at a time. It is not good for your ears, your hearing. I don't need to have to start going to doctors because some business wants to blast me out of my house, or the festivals. There was an issue with the prior ordinance about the boom cars. I was told by Chief Kitchen, just wait till we get it passed. Nothing has been done about those. Brian Kramer and I agreed. We were both walking along Allen a few years ago, and we were agreeing that those boom cars do nothing for his business. With that lovely patio he has, one of those goes by and it disrupts the ambiance. It does nothing for us residents. I sat in my living room one time, 5 times in that hour, it felt like I had a booming headache when some car goes by. When we were at the library for the Compassionate Cities program, one of these cars was parked at the light, boom, boom, boom. When the library board was interviewing a library director a few years ago, all of us turned our heads with one of these boom, boom, booms. Those things. The police department is really good at PR. All it has to do is announce, no more boom cars in Ferndale, ticket for 1 day, and the message will get across. And our police department can do that.
You are at 3 minutes, so if you want to make your last point.
Well, one of the other problems is that the current ordinance does not take into consideration that bass sounds are amplified by the walls of the houses. So taking the reading outside the house totally misses the misery that is caused inside. And I can come back later for another subject. Thank you.
Not really. Good evening.
Good evening. Deborah Young, 440 West Troy. I'm really here to kind of speak in support of the new fair organization. I'm also a member, and I really wanted to emphasize that this is as much business as residents. Obviously, I'm a resident of West Troy. We're going to be the one very severely impacted by this. A lot of the residents on my street are a member of this group. I was not able to attend the Rust Belt meeting, so I kind of wanted to make my objections known here now that we are not against a parking structure. But our idea of a parking structure was perhaps a 3-story, something maybe double or triple the parking. This is something that we can't even imagine. We're going to have what they call retail facing the front of my house, right on Allen. And we've been told before by the DDA and by the city that you people have no control over what the tenant will be. You're telling me it's retail, but that could very possibly be 3 bars right in front of my house, and that's just not acceptable to us. Not to mention the fact that anybody who really lives that close knows that while our streets are filled with cars, there are empty spots in that lot because people want to park for free. Now, if you put retail facing Allen and the parking is on the other side, where are the people going to park? They're going to park on my block for free. A, because it's free, B, because it's closer. So this is where my objection is, because we already have a packed lot. I don't see how this is going to help. I mean, it's going to be a monstrosity. So my neighbors and I and some business owners have formed this group, and this is what we're doing. We want the public to know that we strongly object to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Paul Kish, 707 West Hazelhurst. I will start this with a positive. Dan Martin, thank you for taking the time and effort to stop and talk with me several weeks ago.
Sure.
Derek Delacourt, I don't know if he's here.
Derek's not here this evening.
Thank you for your correspondence dated August 11th, 2014, regarding City Council inquiry, dead tree regulations. 11 years later, the truth comes out. This ticket presented, which is Exhibit K in the file that I submitted to this city, was written on September 5th, 2003. Description being dead tree on top of house with lights to be removed, failure to remove. Court date was October 7th, 2003 at 2 p.m. On the bottom of that ticket is printed, I declare under the penalties of perjury that the statements above are true to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief. That was signed by Judith Purdy, September 5th, 2003. There were 4 court dates for that tree. October 7th, 2003, November 4th, 2003, November 25th, 2003, and January 20th, 2004. The transcripts of each one of those hearings are Exhibit L in the file that I submitted to this city. Again, on May 29th, 2014, I met with the city's code enforcement officer, Jeff, in my yard. I asked him to write out a notice of violation against a dead tree in my neighbor's yard, which is a safety hazard to myself. Again, he stated we do not have an ordinance regarding a dead tree. Derek Delacourt's correspondence. That's odd. Here is the law mailed to me by Derek Delacourt. I call that misinformation given by Jeff, the code enforcement officer, on May 29th, 2014, because there is a law against a dead tree. Judith Purdy committed perjury when she signed that ticket on September 5th, 2003. She had information, she had knowledge, she had belief that this city had no law or ordinance against that tree. That is further described in the summary section of the file submitted to you, pages 2 through 6. Derek Delacourt's correspondence dated August 11th, 2014 proves the point that there is no law or ordinance against the tree on my roof. The law states while these provisions regulate trees growing on private property and overhanging the street and highways of the city, a plain reading of that text indicates it does not extend to trees growing on private property which do not overhang the streets and highways of this city and are not a menace to the public.
You're actually over 3 minutes, so if you want to conclude, that would be wonderful.
I'll do that.
All right.
Yet Dan Chris, city attorney, prosecuted me in the courthouse across the street for 4 days with a law that didn't exist. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council? Yeah, I'm giving you 1 minute this time, though. You don't get another 3 minutes for getting back in line.
Well, this was one of 4 points.
All right.
The free parking issue. There are empty spaces. Withington Street, for example, that whole line of parking meters is rarely ever used, but the residential side is. The Breckenridge lot behind Charter 1, rarely used. There are days where the parking lot in West Troy has empty spaces and people are parking on our street. The West Saratoga people have cars parked there, and there's still some meters that are empty. We need residential-only permit parking on all of those 3 streets, period, just like they have by Gilda's house. And we should not have to pay for those permits. Nobody else in this town does. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else would like to address council this evening? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item of business, which is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are items that council considers routine, and we enact in one motion unless something is pulled by council from the consent agenda. Let me read it now. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held July 28, 2014, and the special meeting held August 11, 2014. Item B is the approval of the boiler and potable water service agreement with Chemco Products, Inc. in the amount of $3,025. Item C is the approval of a contract with Georgie Concrete of Detroit for the 2014 sidewalk replacement program and authorization for the mayor and city clerk to sign said contract. Item D is the adoption of a resolution authorizing council members Martin and Pollica to attend the Michigan Municipal League Conference. Item E, adoption of a resolution recognizing Friends of the Ferndale Library as a nonprofit organization operating in the city of Ferndale. Item F is adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager to proceed towards implementation of recommendations necessary to receive redevelopment-ready communities certification from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Item G is the approval of a special event permit, happy to report this one, for the 2014 DIY Street Fair on September 12th, 13th, and 14th, 2014 on East Troy Street, East 9 Mile Road, along with parking lots number 9 and 10 as detailed on the event director's summary. Item H is the approval of retirement incentives in the amount of $1,000 per year of service for eligible employees as noted in the request for council action, and authorization for the HR director, Jenny Walewski, to execute said agreements to be finalized no later than January 1st, 2015. Item I is the approval to purchase 15 additional VX354 VHF high-powered portable radios from Synergy Products for $5,865 to be charged to special programs. And finally, the approval of the bills and payroll is submitted by the city manager's office, subject to the review of the council finance committee. What is council's pleasure on the consent agenda?
I move that we accept consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Lennon. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda, either by council or any member of the public?
I actually have 2. The first one would be 6B. Now, I did have a conversation with This is for the boiler and potable water system agreement. I did have conversation with Jill. My concern was we seem to have this come every year. It's an annual contract, and the price never changes, and why can't we get a 3-year contract so that we don't have to continue to vote on this every year if it's the same price? So moving forward next year, we're going to pursue a multi-year contract.
Okay. And you said there was a second one?
The second one is 6C, and I'm hoping Lloyd might be able to address this. This is with the Giorgio Concrete, and it has to determine who determines what type of stone is used in the concrete of the pour, because years ago, they used to use a small stone, almost like a pea stone, and those concrete slabs would last 40 years. And now they're using larger stones, and they pop, and they leave craters. The slabs all in front of my house are 10 years old, and they look worse than some of the slabs that are 40 years old. And it's because they're using larger stones. So who determines the stone size?
Well, if I may, it's a couple of issues. One, mostly it isn't actually the materials, it's the workmanship. Some of that workmanship doesn't become apparent until the concrete ages. But in addition to that, by the amount of concrete that we're replacing, that is aged concrete, some of which is old, as you determine, that we're replacing every year. So it's one of those things where you only notice what's being replaced or what's bad, you know what I mean? So you wouldn't notice if it was the other way around, which is what the case is. But as far as the size of aggregate, I mean, that technology over the years has developed. Concrete's been around a long time. They do mix large and small pieces of aggregate in order to fill those voids. You don't want to have a concrete sidewalk that is all concrete, because it would not stand up to wear. It'd be brittle. It would break. They add aggregate in order to bond that material all together. But in addition to that, having large and small aggregate makes sense because they interlock, and the smaller ones will fill the voids of the larger one. But as far as popping on the surfaces, that's mostly workmanship. You know, our specifications are, you know, up to date. They're what the engineers would, which who is here tonight? And if you have anything that I'm saying wrong, jump in. But you know, that's what determines it really. You know, the specifications are accurate for the application that we're using now. But there are concrete, you know, 20 years from now, they might be saying the same thing about the concrete we put down now. It just kind of matters where you're at and whether that workmanship that particular year was, you know, a craftsman style job or perhaps just a production job. And many times that's not noticeable in the first year or the two when that we have a warranty.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Sherilyn, could you call the roll?
Councilmembers Martin?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to the regular agenda, item A is the consideration of Health and Wellness Advisory Committee appointments. And April, or no, Jenny, are you going to introduce that item? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is, I guess, what I would consider one of our last formalities in the development of our team as we move forward with our health and wellness clinic. We have developed an implementation team who has been meeting weekly as we work through the development and construction of our new employee health and wellness clinic. We've now named that clinic. It's going to be called My Life Health and Wellness Center, which we're excited about. But what we've done is once our implementation or once our grand opening occurs, we've developed a committee that will be responsible for making decisions on behalf of the group as we move forward. And so there's a member of each community on that committee, if you will. So what we are asking is that I would be the main member on that committee, April would be an alternate, and any decisions that would be made as we move forward would be handled through that committee on a future basis. So all the communities, just so you know, are doing the same thing and bringing that forward to their council as well to nominate their employees or their members to the committee.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
I have a point of discussion.
Well, wait for a motion on discussion, yeah.
I move to approve the agreement to appoint the Human Resources Director and the delegate for Ferndale with the City Manager, April Lynch, as the alternative to the Health and Wellness Management Advisory Committee.
Support.
Moved by Piana, supported by Polika. Now, discussion.
Just, I have no issues, of course, with your guys' appointment to this, but just as a matter of policy, I would like to reflect that their proposal was filled with statements like patient-centered medical home, with very little of the infrastructure to support that. So as part of the governing body, I would encourage you to hold them to that proposal. And if you need clarity as to what that means, I would be happy to sit down and have further discussion about it. But it was a very attractive point to the proposal, but there wasn't a whole lot backing it up. So on an ongoing basis, I would hope you guys hold them to that.
Sure, great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion, comments, questions? Shirlene, could you call the roll, please? Oh, did we have a, yeah, we had a motion.
Yes.
That's all right.
Yes. Council members Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Just really quickly, just to add, unfortunately, due to the weather that took place in the last couple of weeks, it affected the basement at Madison Heights where we're actually constructing our clinic. So our costs, if you will, have been reduced as some of the repairs that will take place in their city hall would actually be covered by their insurance.
A silver lining to the flood.
Small. Just a little bit. Got to look on the bright side of things. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Item B is a consideration of water main replacement bid award. And is that you, Lloyd? Yep.
As council recalls, there was much discussion on the original East 9 Mile bid that came in significantly over budget. In an effort to reduce those costs, we broke the water main out, hoping that more contractors would bid on the job because they did not have to follow the state's requirements, although they were fine contractors, available that were not qualified by the state. Doing so allowed us, there were 3 bidders. Doing so did allow us to save a little over $80,000 on the project. Our engineer who wrote the specifications is here tonight if you have any particular questions, but my recommendation would be to take the low bid, and we were successful at least saving $80,000. The remainder of the project has not, the bid opening has not occurred. I believe those are due sometime in September. September 4th, and then we'll know whether or not our overall strategy has worked. Although recent bids are not encouraging, but we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that it comes in lower than what it did originally.
And when would the work be done again, Lloyd? Scott?
October.
Starting in October.
I thought it was October.
All right.
I couldn't remember.
Questions or motion?
No. I have a question. I'm all for the, I guess a statement or a question. I'm all for the low bid, but in the bidding process, it was noted in the information in the packet that they originally made an error on their submission and then came in, but yet 80,000 below. That's fine. Are we comfortable, and are there clauses in the contract that allow penalties for going over that bid? Because the initial bid and the retraction, I don't want to say makes me question that final bid, and what's our comfort level with that final bid once it was adjusted, and what happens if they run over?
Well, comfortable, yes. I mean, it's significantly lower than the second low bid.
Sure.
As far as going over, these projects are unit priced and unit bid. So if we bid out, let's say, 1,000 foot of water main, and they put in 1,020 feet, they get paid for 1,020 feet. That's generally how you go over on these projects.
I guess that wasn't my, that's not my concern. It's just the original error made me, look for our comfort level of the validation of their current Formula 1 bid. So if you're comfortable, that was my question.
I'm comfortable with it. I prefer it didn't happen that way, that's for sure.
I call it out, but it does call into question, again, they still came in lower, and I'm all for the low bid, but you do this, I don't,
Yeah, we're comfortable with it. The contractor, Don Trolson's been in business since, I believe, the 60s. He did a lot of the work in the 1990s rehabilitation program. He's a good contractor. He missed it.
Yeah, okay.
He admits it. We checked it, and it pretty much validated it.
Okay. So, thanks.
I did want to inform council that I will be removing myself from this vote. The Trolson Excavating Company has a family member, my cousin, is the VP of Trolson. I was unaware that this was going out to bid to them and that they would respond. I have nothing to do with their business. And the owner of the company is a family member removed by divorce. So, but for...
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. But keeping with my level of ethics, I will not be taking a vote on this item tonight.
Then a motion from someone else would be appropriate.
I'd move that we approve, I would move to approve the combined low bid of $411,390 from Scholson Excavating Company, 1395 Rochester Road, Troy, to replace the water main on East 9 Mile from Paxton to Hilton, and to charge the expense to the Water Sewer Fund, Capital 592-977.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Polika.
I guess my only question would be, do we need to state in here not to exceed?
The only reason I would be concerned about that would be the exact same reason he said, because there are different reasons to exceed. My concern would be that a calculation was off, but if he ends up going 20 feet over what he planned to, I think that's understandable, and I would hate for that to come back to council. I like the spirit of what you're suggesting, that would be my concern.
The contract will have language that addresses changed circumstances or changed conditions, which the contractor would have to submit to the city.
Have you drawn that contract up yet?
That contract is a typical contract for infrastructure construction projects, which will be forwarded.
Yes.
This is the bid award. That contract will come back to council at a later meeting.
Okay.
Scott, will changing from a 6-inch to a 12-inch main appreciably change the pressure?
Yeah, it'll definitely, I mean, it's going to complete the hydraulic, modeling that was done for 9 Mile, all the way from Oak Park to Hazel Park. They'll all be, not brand new, but 12-inch water mains when we started in 1995, replacing that water main. So this will complete it.
Thank you.
Now, right now on 9 Mile, we have storm waste going into the same pipe, correct?
It's a combined sewer system, yes.
And we're not separating that?
No, this is a water main project.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't want that.
Yeah, we don't. Sorry.
Scott, while I have you up there, I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but Lloyd had also mentioned that the other bids are not coming back as awesome as we'd like. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on out there as it relates to the industry and how we might be looking at for the near foreseeable future?
The two big projects that are out there right now are the I-96 reconstruction, which my understanding is employing 1,500 people and 50 subcontractors. So it's taken a lot of skilled people on one project. The other project is the airport project, which I don't know a lot about. Very large project, though. Same thing, taking a lot of people. The other issue they're having right now is laborers, especially truck drivers. They cannot find truck drivers, so getting materials to the site is expensive. Even bringing in materials from out of state, steel, rebar, stuff like that. Big lead time, and they're having a difficult time getting the materials here. So all that is starting to increase the price of construction. My understanding is in June, I think it was in June, McCoy, who's a big cement supplier, overnight bumped his prices by 20%. And everyone's going to follow. So it's, the prices have been really stable for quite a while since the recession, and now I think we're really starting to see them go up.
Thank you.
We're really hoping that, with I-96 getting done, the airport getting done, and bidding this for next year's construction, we'll see the cost come down.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Sherlyn, you want to call the roll, please?
Council members Lennon?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. And our last regular agenda item is consideration of a financial software agreement with BS&A. And Joe, I think this is yours.
Oh, boys.
No PowerPoint, you're all right.
Mayor Council, no PowerPoint, you'll notice.
Yeah.
Happy to see that. I am here to introduce this item. This is, the New World System is the city's financial software. The agreement with New World is set to expire June 30th, 2015, meaning we have just finally paid for the final year of the agreement. Recognizing that we are in the final year, and also recognizing that we are in the midst of a lot of IT reformation right now, we took this as an opportunity to examine what other alternatives might exist and might make sense for the city moving forward. So let me walk briefly through what internal software services the city does have. So New World provides the financial software, and that actually is what enables the city to manage its annual budget process. It's, allows us to have the accounts payable, manage daily transactions, and also provide the utility accounts in the online water website that allows us to process online payments for water. BS&A is a product that we use for property record management, community economic development, building services, code enforcement. Recently, we did upgrade to their .NET platform, which has enabled us to do code enforcement mobilely. Oakland County also uses BS&A for their assessing services, and they are the city's contracted assessor. So, as you can see, a lot of our services are used by BS&A, and BS&A does offer a very competitive financial suite that provides all of these same services as New World, but at a more competitive price. In addition to the more competitive price, getting back to the technology, the agreement with BS&A truly fits a lot of our objectives that we are moving toward with technology, and that is reducing the number of contractors internally that we have servicing our IT. It also, more specifically, reduces the number of physical inventory that we have to manage and have to replace. And to that point, you'll see in the call for action, I specifically mentioned the leveraging of the technology that reduces the total cost of ownership. The New World System currently, according to their hardware requirements, require 4 to 5 servers to run. They also wanted us to spend $17,000 on a software upgrade this summer, in addition, and another physical server to support a test environment for that software. So that total would have been about $23,000 this summer in additional costs, just for the upgrade and another server. Comparatively, BS&A actually has, over the last 4 or 5 years, really redeveloped the way it provides their financial services, leveraging virtualization technology. And what virtualization does is allow the city to make a modest upgrade to our existing server that allows it to virtualize up to 6 to 8 virtual server environments, meaning that we don't have to purchase any new servers. We can actually migrate and reduce our existing servers into these virtual environments, meaning we don't have to keep replacing and managing new physical servers. So it saves the city a significant amount of money in the long run.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Since the current contract is paid up, are you prepared to switch to the new provider right away?
Well, no, and that's yes and no. That's why we are presenting this now for 2015. Municipal software takes about 6 months to complete a complete transition to a new software provider.
Okay.
There's a lot of data migration. There's a lot of studies. There's a lot involved. So, and you'll notice in the attachment there's a project outline or a timeline that's specified. But by doing it now, and should council choose to approve this, we do get guaranteed a project place to begin in January. So if we begin in January, we are ready to launch at the expiration of the contract, which means we will be supported by New World. We've paid for that support for the remainder of the fiscal year. Then next fiscal year, we will launch with this new software provider.
Okay, thank you.
So speaking in terms, again, of the savings on the physical environment, the amount of IT resources that we can minimize and reduce, we can also reduce our annual licensing fees by going to the single provider to BS&A, and minimize the data entry and property record and billing management. There's a lot of just operational efficiencies we can achieve now by doing this. And then secondly, there's a significant return on investment. Should the city do this, and again, I've showed this in my exhibit, the city would get a return on investment just in annual software costs by the fourth year in 2018 and 2019. And then again, we retain that return on investment moving forward beyond that. That does not include the savings that I could estimate on just physical hardware that we wouldn't have to replace or manage. So, in summary, this is really an opportunity that exists today that didn't exist because BSNA has chosen to use the last 4 or 5 years to really develop and I think focus its approach to software management using modern technology. They've done a good job, and that fits with the services that they already provided the city as well as the city's IT vision moving forward. So, if you have any questions.
Other questions of council?
Yeah, just clarity around the scope of this. Is this strictly limited to the transactions with regards to the building department and the financial system, or is there a benefit across all departments?
There is a benefit across all departments. Right now, the finance software component and the building software component do not speak well to each other. They're different codes.
So my follow-up question then is, did we consider or ask the DDA to go on the system with us?
The DDA actually currently uses the city's New World finance system, so they would be, for their budget purposes, they would be using the BSNA, I would assume.
As well as the library would be following
They would
under,
just-
right.
So all of them would use BSNA?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful.
Other questions? Or a motion?
Pull it up here. I move to approve the purchase of and implementation of financial software package between the City of Ferndale and BSNA for $192.703 from account numbers 592.977.000 and 101.212.977 and 36 installment payments at an APR not to exceed 2.91% contingent upon an agreement between the city attorney and BSNA on insurance and identification language.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Lennon and supported by Polika. Any additional questions?
No, I just think this makes sense. I mean, the savings is minimal. The big thing to me is the efficiencies and streamlining, not having to deal with any more software that, for one, is quite confusing, but two, just training, you don't need to train staff on 2 different types of software.
I've been a big proponent of the city moving to cloud-based services wherever possible, and so I'm glad to see that we're taking a bigger step here. I know some of these cloud services weren't available years ago, so I'm glad we're able to make these connections and provide better services. And I also wanted to say, creating a Chief Innovation Officer position was exactly what we were trying to address here, this problem among problems with all of our technology integration and upgrades. So I'm really proud of the work that you've done on behalf of city transformation and creating government efficiencies. It's worth the weight in gold.
And while we're embarrassing you, I guess I will also say, in all seriousness, though, 2 weeks ago when the storm hit, April unfortunately had a family emergency, and Joe was our interim city manager. And Joe, I appreciate the way that you stepped up and worked around the clock and guided the city during that initial part of that storm. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you very much. Parking presentation,
A lot of
please.
love for Joe. A lot of love for the presentation.
All right,
And thank you to the person that brought him a change of clothes and deodorant.
Yes. More important.
Thank you to Republic Parking then.
Sherilyn, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Piana.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Polika.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Now, let's see, anything from Chief Collins and the Police Department for the good of the city?
I do have a couple things, Your Honor. First off, I would like to announce that once again that we will be participating in the National Take Back Initiative sponsored through the DEA, in which citizens on September 27th between 10 and 2 can drop off their unused or unwanted prescription drugs, and they will be disposed of properly. I would like to add to some of the information that was given out about the great flood of 2014 in regards to the items that are set to the curb for disposal. Although we have, the city has graciously allowed people to put their belongings out early, we have had an uptick in trash pickers and scavengers and scrappers, and we have adopted a, there's no, anybody that gets stopped is going to get a ticket. If they don't listen and they stop them the second time, we will arrest them for the scavenging. We've had some difficulty with some of these items, particularly children's toys that have been picked up and then resold in garage sales and flea markets. So we have elected to have anybody that gets caught, we're going to cite them. And we've had several instances in which we've done that so far.
And Chief, just on that point, I know that ordinance is on the book, but my perception is that typically it's not something that we actively enforce as a general rule. So this is some, I don't want to say we never do, but, right, and so there's sort of a period now where because of the contamination of this property, is that the...
It has been on the books for many, many years. Where it is true is that it may not have been enforced strictly in the past. This is a kind of a one-time kind of a situation there that we believe that the public health could be impacted by this, particularly for some of the more unscrupulous people that are not rehabbing these items that they find properly and just turning them over for a quick dollar to rehab them for garage sales and flea markets. So that's our concern.
All right. Thank you.
We would like to announce that the Year 20 Dream Cruise was, again, from a police perspective, was a success. We had no real incidents. We credit Michael Leary for having a very good plan in place with a lot of volunteers for the crossings, but we would also like to thank for the closing and some of the extra help that we have from the Hazel Park Reserves, the Detroit Police Department Reserves, Oakland County Sheriff's Department Reserves, and the Oakland County Sheriff's Mounted Division all gave us a hand on Friday and Saturday, and it was much appreciated. I think
one's still hanging around there, yeah.
And lastly, not to minimize any of the losses that our residents suffered from their floodings, but as you well know, City Hall and the Police Department lost a great deal of electronic equipment as well as personal equipment and police equipment. And I would like to recognize and thank some of the folks that stepped up and gave us a hand, notwithstanding our own Ferndale Fire Department, notwithstanding our own DPW, that were instrumental in getting us back online and shutting everything down and turning it back on, because they certainly were there for us. But some of the outside agencies, Hazel Park did and is handling our 911 initial calls. They are transferring them to us, but until our 911 system is back up and running, they will be handling our 911 calls for us. The Royal Oak Police Department, the Fraser Police Department, and the Auburn Hills Police Department heard our plight because many of our officers lost their bulletproof vests in the locker room and were destroyed by the flood, and they donated slightly used vests for us to use in the interim while we will be revesting all the police officers, and that was one of the more critical things that we had to step up to. The Oakland County Sheriff's Department, Oakland County Clemis, and Oakland County Radio got us up and running, although we may be cobbled together now. When you call the Ferndale Police, you get the Ferndale Police, and when we dispatch cars, we're using, although not our whiz-bang, state-of-the-art radio 911 system, but we do have a system in place, and it's working fine at this point in time. Some of the personnel I'd like to recognize first is some of our auxiliaries, Bob Sinclair in particular, and Mike Poole in particular, that took these nasty guns that had been sitting in that water for a period of time, all the officers' weapons, all of the weapons from the armory that were submerged in water for a great period of time. They came in, donated their time, set up a system and cleaned and refurbished all those weapons for us within hours of them starting. They just did a fantastic job, and it was well appreciated. Some of the personnel that from our agency was Lieutenant Whiting, Lieutenant O'Loughlin, who tried to mitigate some of that operations that were going on at the initial stages, and Lieutenant Palazzolo, who spent a great deal of time, those officers, going through all of the things that we lost to try to categorize and find out what we needed to get back up and running. And Sergeant Jones and PEO, former traffic officer LaRoe, who are and still are trying to mitigate the evidence room, which was also put underwater, and all of that evidence that was, which we can't throw out, which was compromised by the water. They are diligently putting that back together. There's a lot of more people that I'm sure I haven't mentioned, but those are the ones that really did step up and got us through this. We're still working our way through it, but we just wanted to make sure that somebody out there got those names out there, and we want to we'll of course do some official thanking down the road, but without this group of people, I don't, it was, when we had a staff meeting the next day, and we put everything that didn't work on the board. And I don't know if you ever saw Apollo 13, just what is working is what we were looking at. And we didn't think we would have anything up for months and months, and now we've been able, we believe within weeks we'll be up and running with some form of the equipment back put together. So we appreciate all the help.
Excellent.
I got a question. Do we need to purchase a new 911 system and get reimbursed hopefully by insurance?
Yep.
Okay.
Everything.
Whole other story that you don't want me to talk about because I'll go into a long dissertation and the city manager will yell at me. But we,
I've heard it.
But we got a plan.
But yeah,
yes,
on that, we are, what we are doing is working through the situation at City Hall. It was pretty significant, the damage we've received, and as time goes on, we're finding more and more things we're adding to the list, unfortunately. We think we're going to be, by the time it's said and done, about $750,000 loss to our lower level. And we are working with the insurance company right now to take a look and do it piece by piece, because it's all, typically in a situation like this, you have like one building, then you get a contractor and then it comes and helps you, but we've had there are like 25 different pieces to this that we're all taking pieces of, but our intent is, what the chief has been doing with the help of our neighbors is putting together a system that will get us through until we're able to do what we can to do it right. So these are most of the measures that have taken place have been temporary, but are working as we need them to right now. But we will be working for full replacement.
Anything electronic, just so you know, will be, if at all possible, going into the new IT room on the first floor of the new building instead of in the basement, just in case we have a second 300-year flood within a year. So hopefully we won't have any of our high-end expensive electronics downstairs below grade anymore.
We won't. Not hopefully, we won't. We'll move them somewhere.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Fire Marshal Madden, anything for the good of the community this evening from the fire department? All right. Jenny, anything else from HR this evening? All right. Karen, anything from finance? Awesome. Michelle, anything for the good of the community this evening? All right. Lloyd, anything else from DPW? We've had a busy week. All right. Joe, anything else from your...
Of course. Yeah, I know.
Just in the spirit of what the chief mentioned, I do want to specifically thank Republic Parking and their information technology team. They actually proactively contacted me while we were still flooding at about 9 o'clock, just to tell me they've already decided to dedicate 100% resources to Ferndale, whatever we need. They actually had already put 2 generators in case we needed them. They already had sent 2 generators on the road at 7 a.m. to get to Ferndale, which arrived at 11:30. But they were able to help get the city back in touch and connected with Oaknet. They were helped to get the Ferndale Fire online. And really, our entire information technology infrastructure was restored for the most part by noon, which was very surprising the following day. They also helped me assist in getting our tickets escalated with AT&T. We did work through 3 in the morning to get those back online, but I'm proud to say the IT and the telecommunications, for the most part, were 90 to 95% restored one day after, and that was a significant event. So thank you, Republic Parking. They did go above and beyond.
Kudos. Jill, anything from Recreation Department?
Just a quick save the date. Fall is right around the corner, believe it or not. And coming up on October 11th is our annual Hilton Fall Festival. It will be at Martin Road Park again this year from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we'd like to thank our presenting sponsor once again, Garden Fresh, to assist us in providing a wonderful day for families in the area. Activities will include pony rides, hay rides, carnival games, face painting, just a great fall-themed fun day. More information to follow. Thank you.
Hey, Jill, before you leave, can you give an update on the summer program that we tried this year with the park rangers and the bathrooms and things of that nature?
Sure. We hired in the beginning of the summer 2 park rangers and also installed some key access locks at 3 of our parks. And we were officially on board with our park rangers and our locks the middle of June 18th or 19th. So it's been just a little over 2 months. And I'm happy to report that our rangers have done a great job this summer keeping our parks clean, checking in with our rentals. We've had a few minor vandalism issues, but I think overall it's been a success. From a department standpoint, our rental income has increased, so we also did include Sunday park rentals back into our offerings. So we were busy all summer long, and I think we look forward to making some minor improvements for next summer, but overall it was a success.
Great, thank you. Will the park ranger end? I don't remember.
We still have one on duty because we do have quite a few rentals throughout the month of September. So we do have some modified schedules. We're not as busy, but we are still quite busy on the weekends. So he's working a modified schedule for the month of September. And then we stopped taking rentals the first, second week in October. So.
Thanks. Sherlyn, anything from the clerk's office?
I would just like to acknowledge our Deputy City Clerk, Marnie McGrath. Today is her 5-year anniversary of employment with the city in my office. Way back when we were first discussing major budget cuts, I remember telling council that if I had the right people, I could do the job with less. And so I thank council for letting me hire the right person who has been a tremendous benefit to the city as she has expanded her role and has just proved invaluable with the EIT, the website, social media, and cable station, as well as elections and everything else that goes on in our office. So.
And weddings. She coordinates weddings.
And weddings.
She does it all.
Yes, she does.
Yes.
Tremendous asset to the city, and thank you.
Agreed. All right. April, anything from the manager's office?
No, just to close out the thank yous and everything. It's just been apparent through this, through these last 2 weeks how awesome our residents are and how lucky that we are to have the residents that we do have. It's been nothing but, back and forth of getting people information, and just really, I think we connected with our residents in a different way this time, and we're working through that. We still have a lot of things that we need to do to fix, but I think at the same token, I feel that we're getting better and better at reaching out to our residents, and we really appreciate their patience and thoughtfulness and making sure that their neighbors are taken care of as well, and as well as our neighbors along the corridor. We've been communicating as city managers together, trying to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're trying to, do the information correctly and asking each other, what are you doing? What can I, what did you do for this situation, and in particular with this flooding? So I thank all of our neighbors, in particular Woodward 5, Huntington Woods, and Pleasant Ridge, Berkeley, Royal Oak, and just in really working together throughout these last 2 weeks. So that's all I have for tonight.
Excellent. Dan, anything from a legal perspective? All right. Mayor Pro Tem Martin.
I'll just echo what everybody else has said. Congratulations to the staff. You guys never cease to impress me with how you handled the flood. Joe, you were awesome. When water was pouring down the walls, you didn't freak out. There was no slide deck, but you did great. Sorry, I had to. Also, Michael Leary, I think, left, but I want to congratulate him. Dream Cruise went really, really well, and kudos to the police and the fire and everything Michael did to make that a really smooth and successful event. And then for just a second, I want to put on the hat of my role as chair of the Ferndale Area Democratic Club. We're having our annual garden party coming up on Sunday, September 7th, from 2 to 5 p.m. at the lovely home of Ms. Jeannie Davis in her backyard at 1531 Pinecrest in Ferndale. It's 2 blocks just south of 9 Mile Road. There's a $10 suggested donation, but that also will cover your membership for the year. And I'm sure we'll always have a good turnout of candidates. This is an election year and an opportunity to meet area Democrats. So you all are welcome.
Great. Councilman Lennon.
I too just want to reiterate, every employee in the city, I think, went the extra mile during that flood. And then several of them jumped right back at it and started handling the dream crews. And that's why we have the city that we do. It's just because we have excellent people behind the scenes. And I know we've kicked this can for years and years, but Ms. Wells got up and spoke about a permit for some Troy residents. And we keep on saying, we'll look into it, we'll do this, we'll do that. I want to sit down with April and maybe some other colleagues of mine and, get something we can present to council that's workable for those residents over there.
We're actually working through that right now, so we're just trying to get all of our enforcement in place and some other things that we would need to take a look at that residential parking.
We'll just keep you informed.
We will, yep.
I have nothing else.
All right. Councilman Polika.
Again, echoing everyone, thank you so much to all the staff. What some residents might not realize is a number of our staff live in the city. Several of them were affected by the flood themselves, and yet they took, they came here to work instead of taking care of their own home problems to make sure that the city was still operating. So thank you to all of those especially. And number of us here on council were affected, so we do know what you went through. I had a foot of water, lost 25% of the stuff in my basement.
Made the cover of the Free Press.
Made the cover of the Free Press, sorting through my albums. But one thing it did identify were some gaps, some things that we need to address. And I know that I've spoken to Joe already, is the a secondary cable station or a backup cable station. One of the issues we identified was when the power goes out at City Hall, we lose the cable station. So we'll get through all that.
All right. Councilwoman Piana.
Well, I'm just going to keep on to the echo. But I wanted to take a different stance. I reflected last week with the mayor about when he and I started working together on council, and we had our electricity outage emergency, and we actually had no city manager because the interim city manager was going out. We hadn't hired April. We had no way to communicate outward. We didn't have a Facebook page. We didn't have a city website that was actually accessible and could push out information. We heavily relied on whom we all grown to admire, Terry Paris from the former Patch. And so I look about what we've done to transform our internal operations, really the sausage making behind the scenes of operations of government, which are really kind of boring for, but they excite me because this is where I ran for council, about how to improve our efficiencies and continuously work as a team. And I think that's the biggest for me, is how your team responds to emergencies tells you about that team. And I think 4 years ago, when was that outage? 11.
My very first year of mayor.
Years ago.
11, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
2011.
Was it 11? Because I came on in
3.5 years ago,
2011.
about approximately. I mean, we still had, silos between our departments. We had a lot of things that didn't work as well as they do now. And I think the efforts of our talented staff has really shown how we come together during an emergency. You can only do that if you're working as a team and you've got the right things in place and are willing to criticize yourself to figure out how to improve the processes to make them better the next time. And I think that's the philosophy I've always wanted to have for our government, and I think our local government, and we have built it. Now we just need to build more of, build on top of it, because the framework is there. So I just wanted to say that's the reflection I have had as we respond individually, collectively, and as a community to this catastrophic flood.
Agreed. I actually don't have much to add to that. I reflected on that event as well, and I think we have, as a staff and as a city, come a long way. But one thing that didn't change, I think, was the reaction of our residents. That was still rock solid. We still looked after each other. We still, put on a brave face and did what we needed to do and came together as a community, and I'm tremendously proud of that. And then to roll from that into Dream Cruise, which is a tremendous burden on our staff, but they did it flawlessly and executed an excellent Dream Cruise again this year for the 20th consecutive year. Very proud of our staff and our community as I sit here tonight as well. So thanks, everybody. And with that, meeting is adjourned.